Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. So as I'm sure most of you know, I'm from the USA, and yesterday was election day, and we are just awaiting the results, but I can't do it anymore. I needed a break from everything, from just keeping up on everything that's going on right now. I decided to give myself something else to do, and then I'm like, well, maybe I can give you guys something else to do, something else to watch for the next 10, 20, however many minutes long this video is, if you also needed that break as well. But makeup was just not happening today. Hair was not happening today. I threw this hat on so the wig doesn't push back and turn on the camera. I couldn't muster myself up to do that. But hopefully I can give you a little escape for a few minutes. And as you can see by the title, what better way to do that than talk about some brands? As you can see, talk about some brands who do things that they shouldn't do but do them anyway. And it's like, do you know you shouldn't be doing it? And the answer is yes. But since they like to act like they don't know that they shouldn't, let's talk about it. Maybe one of them might come across this. Brands just be doing things where I'm like, who approved this? You know, who said this was the right thing to do? That first thing that brands do is attack customers. Now, as someone who has worked in retail since I was 16, I am a firm believer that no, the customer is not always right. Okay, but y'all know what type of attacks I'm talking about. The type of attacks where it's just like, that was really unnecessary. Like, just say you don't want customers at this point. And the thing is, you have to give customers less credit, if that makes sense. Like, the way you'd be like, oh, well, the average person can do this, or the average person should think this way. You gotta think less of that when dealing with customers, because, and maybe it goes back to the whole, you know, like the customer is always right type of rationale that some people do have when they shop. But when it comes to being a consumer and a customer, sometimes there's this really irrational thinking with customers, with consumers, where rationality goes out of the window. So you got to give them a little less credit, work a little bit more with them, because there's a disconnect there, especially if you ever watch like any of these court cases. You follow me on Twitter, you know what I'm talking about. But people are always suing for like the most bizarre things, and you're thinking, well, that's bizarre. Why would you think, you know, you can sue the store because they wouldn't let you use an expired coupon? Like, you guys remember the story time of the customer who called me the N-word because she couldn't use an expired coupon? Like, that's irrational, right? But there's just some type of irrational thinking that comes out when you're a consumer. So when you're a business owner, when you're working in those type of businesses where you're dealing with customers, you got to take that into account when you're reacting or responding to people. Like, my job is a YouTuber, right? I'm not selling you anything, but you watching me, like, that's the exchange here. I give the content, you watch me, that's what we're exchanging here. So I will put on a lipstick in a video, I will put what lipstick I'm wearing in the description of the video, and I will still get a comment that says, what lipstick are you wearing? Now, I can't describe to you the fire that burns within me when I see that, because it's just like, so just dismiss everything that I just did, right? But when I respond to you, I'm just gonna tell you what lipstick I'm wearing for the third time. And the thing is, I'm gonna do that or just not respond. I'm not gonna not respond because it's annoying. If I don't respond, it's because I literally just don't see it or I forget to respond. But for the people who can't respond by just saying whatever it is, or respond in a nasty way, you know, the type of people who are like, you can't read, it's in the description right there. Like, why am I wasting my time filling out my description box if you're gonna ask me questions that I already answered? And I've literally seen these type of replies before, right? It's like, for the people who can't not do that, just don't answer. If it makes you that mad, just keep scrolling, because if you didn't answer, like, nothing would have changed. You see what I'm saying? Like, if you didn't answer, they wouldn't have an answer to their question, but you also wouldn't have put your own foot in your mouth, right? So that's what I'm saying when I'm saying, like, you gotta give people a little less credit and just work with people a little bit more, because listen, even I myself as my consumer, I have my days, okay? I have my days where I miss things that are right there, okay? And I don't want a brand yelling at me. I'm sensitive, okay? Give me less credit. So an example of what I'm talking about, do you guys remember the brand Z Palette? Yeah, did any of you just sit there and go, oh my God, Z Palette? Haven't heard that name in a minute. If you guys don't know who Z Palette is, I don't even know if they're still in business. But back in the day, single pan eyeshadows were a lot more popular than they are now. Now it's all, you know, eyeshadow palette, stuff like that, right? But back in the day, People were really buying up single pan eyeshadows, and then they needed somewhere to put them, right? So Z Palette was a brand that offered Z palettes. They were these empty palettes that you could buy, and you could put your single pan eyeshadows in those, right? Really popular. You saw them all over the place because, again, like I said, the single eyeshadows were popular back then too. So one day, Z Palette announced that they were launching something. I think it was something that was supposed to make it easier for you to depot eyeshadow palettes so you can put the pans in your Z palette, right? And I don't remember what it was called, but I'll have it pop up somewhere if I can find it or anything, right? So they posted it and people gave their opinions. Some people liked it, some people did not. Another thing when it comes to running a business, some people are going to like what you put out, some people are not. If it's literally constructive, I don't like this because the price is that, or I don't like this because the color is that, because this, that, the third, and you're a business owner or you work for the business, keep your mouth shut, okay? They're allowed to say that. Again, you need them. They don't need you. They can literally move on to the next person. Keep your mouth shut. And if there's things like, you know, your appearance, like think the type of collabs where they're doing it with an influencer, they're saying something about your appearance, your speech, I don't know, your home life, then I could see why you would feel a little more inclined to say something, because like that's unnecessary. What does that have to do with what the collab is about? But other than that, be quiet, okay? And that usually comes down to very smaller brands, or you know, like brands where it's just the brand owner who's running the social media page, or you know, you're not a big company, so you've got a friend running your social media. You've got, you know, a mom, a sibling, someone who's too emotionally involved because they like you, they care about you. So they're not going to take well to someone saying that eyeshadow palette doesn't make sense, the colors in it, they're not going to take well because they're too emotionally involved. Now, when you're smaller, there's not much you can do about that. You don't have the funds to hire someone to be your social media manager, but you got to be on top of that. Either you got to be on top of the close friends and family and how they've got your brand out here looking, or you've got to be on top of yourself, okay? If you can't do it, then maybe you should be the brand that doesn't respond as much, okay? It's better than being the brand that does respond and you put your foot in your mouth. Now back to Z Palette. So they came out with this, I think it was like $85, and people are giving their opinions on it, right? Let me read you some of the comments that were coming from the brand to customers. You look like a cheap date, but we're not messing with you. I don't see, especially when you don't know how to drag and you try to, like it would have been best to just be quiet. Thank God we don't need your money. And then they put out a press release where, you know, brands address the scandals that they've got going on. You think they're gonna give you the PR statement that brands usually give you, but no, that's not what they did. They said, let's see here. Many times we adapt the face of the company in the face of harsh commentary. Sometimes we do not. It's not how many friends/customers you have, it's the quality of those customers. Basically saying like, we good, all right? We don't need a lot of y'all. We just need the ones here who are going to do what we say, do what we like, go along with what we like, all that stuff, right? And y'all heard what they said? What was it? Verbatim? Was that verbatim? Thank God we don't need your money. Now fast forward 3 years later, when's the last time you heard of Z Palette? I don't even know if it's still in business. And I think about it, I just gotta laugh because they really said, well, if you don't like what we have to say, then you can just stop buying our stuff. And consumers really said, okay. Now here's the thing, companies can say that they want this, that, and the third person using their stuff, right? And they do say that. They say, I do want this person using my stuff. I don't want this type of person doing that and whatever, right? I respect that. Let me know not to give you my money, because if I give you my money and I find out later that I'm someone whose money you wouldn't have wanted, then I feel like I've been duped, right? But if I give you my money knowing that you've already said you don't want my money, then I am boo-boo the fool. So go ahead, say that, right? The thing is, if you only want this type of person using your stuff, you know, like we don't need you, we rely on these customers, this, that, and the third, then make sure that those customers that you do want can sustain you as a business. okay? And also make sure that like you don't need other businesses to maintain your business, because after all of that happened, like influencers started pulling out, companies started pulling out, like retailers. I think they were sold at Ulta before. I think BoxyCharm pulled out, stuff like that, right? And again, I don't even know if they're still in business. They probably, if they are still in business, probably sold it to someone else. And the thing is, that was, I don't know if it was the owner who was running the page at that time, but like it's a company. I'm sure they've got other employees, and what brand owners and other brand employees need to keep in mind when they do stuff like this, you do something like that and fast forward years later, like it's a brand that's not in business anymore, you're not just putting yourself at risk. You know, because you were in your feelings when you read that, you just put an easy 60 people's livelihood at risk because you couldn't deal with the comments saying they don't like your eyeshadow palette or your product was too expensive. Another thing brands do that they shouldn't is get very creative with their advertising, almost so creative that it's false advertising, especially at a time right now where people can't go in store and swatch and see the things that they're buying before they spend their money on it. Brands need to make the pictures that they're using to advertise on their websites, on social media, as accurate as possible. That if this is what you see on your computer screen, because remember, you know, things are gonna look different behind a phone screen, a computer screen. There's only so much a brand can do, but you need to try your hardest to make sure that it is the most accurate representation of what you're going to get when it's delivered to your house. And a lot of brands have issues with that, especially brands when it comes to the swatches of their products or how deep their products go, because their products aren't actually, you know, dark skin friendly. Like earlier in the year, I'm sure you guys remember, I did a video where I was swatching bronzers to see if it was a catfish, you know, to see if what you see when you're looking at it online is actually what you're going to get. I think one of the worst offenders was NARS. They had a foundation shade that looks like this in the picture, but then when I got it in person, you know, it's swatched like this. And it's like, I mean, I feel like you have to know there's a disconnect between what your picture looks like advertised and what it looks like when you get it in person, but you do it anyway. And I can't help but feel like you're doing it because you know that your product isn't as inclusive as you'd like to make it out to be, right? Probably the worst offender I've come across in general, like I had to make a whole video on it, was Miss Natasha Denona, okay? I think it was last year, either last year or the year before. I uploaded a video where she came out with a bronzer, blush, whatever duo, and it looked like this in the packaging, right? And I was just like, that just don't add up. Okay, especially after seeing the foundation range that she came out with the first time around, I was like, that just doesn't look right to me. So I bought it. I think it was like $20, $25 at the time, right? So I bought it, a little experiment there. And when I got it, when I say like, I couldn't even use that thing as like an under eye highlighting powder, like just Ash City, okay? And again, what I'm saying is, not only does that play into your returns, you know, people having to go through returning that stuff, people don't like doing that anyway. So, and especially when people do have to return things, I don't even think people are aware of it sometimes, but it just puts like a bad taste in your mouth when you gotta go, because no one wants to do that to begin with, right? So that's already like strike one. And then you sit back and you're like, not only do I have to go through this return process, but I have to go through this return process because like you really tried to play me with what you were offering me on the screen. So it's like a trust issue that we've got going on right now, especially for repeat offenders. Like if you have repeated instances where people are like, that's not how it looks when it comes in person, that's a problem. But brands do it anyway, because for a lot of brands, they put more effort into how what they're selling to you is presented than what they're actually presenting to you. You know, gotta make sure that the billboard is nice and saturated, make sure that it looks like this, look like that, and then you get it in person. It's like, I don't really care that you got chalk in person and you got your money, right? Maybe you'll return it, maybe you won't. A lot of people don't like going through the return process. They know they'll take that gamble, and it's like once it starts to add up, people start talking. And the last thing I have for you guys that brands do that they probably shouldn't, but they're going to continue to do, and I've seen more and more of it as time goes on, are brands that are trolls. You know, they can't come out with something that's actually creative, something that actually looks good, works good. They can't rely on that, so they rely on shock value. You know, almost like the whole like no publicity is bad publicity, and as long as I've got people talking about it, or I name it, I make it look like something that would cause outrage, stuff like that, so it'll sell, right? I don't know if you guys have heard, but the company P. Louise has announced their canceled collection. Yeah, it's called the canceled collection, and it is a collection where you look at the collection itself, regular old eyeshadow palette, I don't know, primers, whatever else is in this collection, right? The packaging has things like fake news on the packaging, right? I don't know, mean remarks that you would hear if you think about being canceled. Think cancel culture, toxic, all that stuff, right? So they released the cancel collection, and then there's like this long description about the canceled collection. It's like, if you have to explain your collection that much to explain why it makes sense to come out with it. Like ColourPop announces that they're doing a, you know, Snow White collection. They don't have to explain that, okay? You're like, oh, Snow White, stuff like that, right? Even, you know, Forever 21 announces their Hot Cheeto collection. Okay, you have to give me a dissertation on your canceled collection, but it's a collection that is supposed to shed light on the toxicity of social media and how canceling people is so wrong and stuff like this, right? And they leave a quote from the owner of P. Louise on why this collection was made, and that says, I'll read you a little quick part of it. Let's see here. Being P. Louise, every move I make is criticized and judged. I live my life center stage. Being known online has its risk, and there will be people who want the worst for you, and that's the sad consequence of success. I will build my empire on the bricks people have thrown at me. Remember, pulling someone down will never help you reach the top. You see how that statement is very, people are haters, social media makes people bitter, I'm gonna continue building my empire and making you guys even more mad. Let me tell you about P. Louise, okay? P. Louise is the company. Paige, I believe, is the owner's name, and social media tried to cancel Paige. Let's call her Paige because I think that's her name. I don't remember, but we'll call her Paige for now, okay? Social media tried to cancel Paige because Paige was saying the N-word, okay? Not only was Paige saying the N-word, but after people called Paige out for saying the N-word, Paige defended it by, one, saying, well, the N-word is put in songs, so if it's in a song, I'm allowed to say the N-word. Okay, and on top of that, Paige also said, also, I have a black boyfriend, so I can't be racist for saying the N-word because I'm dating a black person. So basically, Paige took no accountability for what she said, and just like any other scandal in the beauty community, time went on and people got over it, right? So you see how disingenuous it is to paint this idea that it's haters and, you know, people are just hating on you and they don't want to see you be successful. Now, don't get me wrong, social media, hateration comes with social media, okay? There's a lot of hateration in this dancery, but that's not the case here, okay? You did something that was actually wrong, took no accountability for it. They didn't just, it's not a case of, I just don't want to see you be rich. And you see what I'm saying here? And the thing about it is, like, this isn't the first time that I've seen, I actually see it a lot where the people who preach so much about how terrible cancel culture is are also the same people who turn around and try to profit off of cancel culture. Or they make jokes about it because it's a joke to them, right? Like, oh, here goes my next scandal. They're gonna make this a scandal tomorrow. Or they profit off it by selling you canceled merchandise, selling you a canceled makeup collection. Not only do they try to profit off of cancel culture, they try to get canceled. They look for that next scandal that's gonna get people to talk about them, because they don't care about the backlash of being canceled, because they know they're not gonna be canceled. They know nothing is going to happen. They don't care about the people who are going to be mad. Let me not say the few people, but not many enough to where it's gonna do anything to them. So the few people who are gonna be angry at whatever they do, they don't care about that. But they do know that there is going to be profit off of this next cancel. Because there's gonna be attention, because there's gonna be people who also don't care enough to cancel you over whatever it is that you did. So now you've got more followers, you've got more people looking at you, you've got more people who know you, you've got more people that you can sell stuff to. The cancel culture. And as you would imagine, people were in the comments like, weren't people hating on her because she was using the N-word? Like, it was just a bunch of comments of people saying, like, bringing up her scandal, commenting on how, like, this sounds so just off. Like, no one thought about this before coming out with it. All these comments about the collection, her scandal, her all this, whatever, right? All of those comments were just being deleted. Like, you would write it and just immediately delete it. And it's like, you thought no one was going to bring up her scandal? They knew you were going to bring up the scandal. But again, you see how profiting off of cancel culture. Aside from turning people off who already know about you for just being annoying, now you're also opening yourself up to turning people off because this is going to bring up your scandal that they probably didn't know about. And they're like, oh, I didn't know that about, oh, not giving them any of my money. And it's just like, what is not clicking for you? Like, imagine back in the day when brands still had publicists, PR teams, stuff like that. Like, let's say you worked for a makeup company, let's say makeup, and the owner had a bad public DUI. Of course, the brand is going to get backlash for this, right? People are gonna be all in the comments saying stuff like that, but somehow your brand manages to pull itself out and it still continues on. And then a couple years later, the brand owner comes to you, the PR person, PR team, and says, hey, I have a great idea. You know what we should do? We should bring attention to my scandal. How? We're gonna come out with a DUI collection. Yeah, and the tagline is going to be, bye-bye to a DUI. Bars. Yup, that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna come out with a sober palette, okay? And in the PR packages, we're gonna include a flask, but not any type of flask, a flask that it's got a clock on it, okay? So once it hits a certain time of night, it won't open anymore. So then you can't drink from it. Or we can put a sensor on the flask. So if it senses that you're too drunk, it won't open anymore. And then you can't drink, right? Right? That's a good type of collection to put out, right, team? Right? And then you as the PR team are just sitting there like, I think it's time to vote him out of the company. And that's when you as the PR person would say, don't you think a DUI collection might bring attention to your DUI scandal that a lot of our current customers don't know about, and that I, as your PR person, have worked hard to mend with the customers who do know about it, and how it might not be a good look for you to profit off of telling other people to not drink and drive when you drunk and drove. And before anyone tries to hit me with this, well, what if they're trying to make it a teachable moment? Okay, teach for free, okay? Donate some of your money to something, not try to sell me your ugly eyeshadow palette. So that is it for this video. I hope something that I said struck with a business owner who might be watching, a future business owner. Just keep that in the back of your mind, okay? Because yeah, some brands might get away with it, some longer than others, but I'm telling you, it catches up to you, okay? So keep in mind what you say, what you do, what you release, how you say it, how you respond. Keep all of that in mind. And yeah, let me know in the comments down below some other things that brands do that they probably shouldn't, but they're gonna do it anyway. Make sure to thumbs up, comment, subscribe, turn notification bells, all of that down below. Thank you all for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.